Hi, I'm Ben Slater, and today I'll be presenting on the fetishization of members of the LGBTQ and the effects of that fetishization. Some key concepts I need to really go over before we can get started are the concepts of intersectionality and objectification theory. Intersectionality is a theory which describes the various aspects of a personal identity, such as race, sexuality, or gender, and how they will all tie into this discrimination, or it will be focusing on objectification a person will receive. Objectification is a theory that was introduced in a 1997 research paper that showed that women as a whole are objectified more than men, and that this objectification had effects, it had consequences. Now that I've introduced objectification theory, I should probably discuss what objectification is. Objectification is what it sounds like. It's treating someone like an object. It has a lot of forms, and there are a lot of ways of objectifying someone. As a whole, it's treating someone like property and taking away their agency in a scenario, because they are an object. Objects have no say. And objectification is a large part of the time sexual. The main kind of sexual objectification I'm going to be focusing on, though, is its most extreme variant, known as fetishization. Like I said, fetishization is a more extreme version of sexual objectification. It's turning something which is non-sexual, which can be a marginalized individual identity, which, side note, when I say marginalized, I mean someone who at any point diverges from a white, cisgendered, heterosexual man. As a whole, anything diverged from there is sexually objectified and fetishized to a higher degree. Fetishization is turning something which is non-sexual, sexual. An example of this is how breastfeeding is seen as something taboo and gross to do in public, or even sometimes in private. And that's entirely because women are fetishized. Because, as I'm sure you all know, feeding an infant is at no point sexual. Now I've described what objectification is and what the kind of objectification I'm going to be discussing, I should probably discuss how it ties to the LGBTQ. Objectification and gender are already a well-known tie, like I said, to the 1997 theory, which was objectification theory, which was able to show that cisgendered women were objectified more than cisgendered men. What it didn't account for was the fact that for non-binary individuals or members who were trans and just had feminine traits, they would also be objectified heavily, and objectified even more by individuals known as chasers by the transgender community, as they are individuals who fetishize transsexuality and will only go after transsexual individuals because of their transsexual nature. Sexuality is something that has been long fetishized, even if it's not really thought about in that manner. Since the 1960s, the adult entertainment industry has marketed lesbian pornography towards a heterosexual male audience as a fetish or sexual taste. Gay men are also a subject to this. They're a special case, though, as the main group that fetishizes gay cisgendered men are straight women. They're also another group of note as the fact that they're men living in a patriarchal society. They tend to experience less fetishization than any other group that has been discussed here. As a whole, bisexual and queer individuals are also fetishized, as it's a non-sexual gender or sexuality. And now that it's been established who's been objectified, it should probably be noted the effects of objectification. The main ones are sexual harassment, which takes the form of either just catcalling, all the way up to non-consensual physical contact to sexual violence, and also some just purely hate-inspired violence, even with the fetishization. There's also just regular plain old violence as a result of fetishization. But more than just these physical, real-world threats, there are a lot of mental ones. Due to the unsafety of being fetishized and objectified to this degree, a lot of people don't feel safe when they're fetishized to this degree. There's also a common sense of loneliness, especially if an individual has been sexually harassed, as they just feel alone in society. Some people also start to internalize this objectification, put appearance over bodily needs such as nutrition. Dealing with objectification or coping with is also fairly common. It has to be. But not all the ways of dealing with it are healthy. Some of the healthier ones are things like self-care, which is things such as simple as eating nutritionally and making sure to get lots of hydration. Or some people go to counseling as a way of dealing with this objectification and working against those mental processes. It's known to not really work for people who are transgender or who are not white. They feel, due to their intersectional nature, they just feel less likely that their counselor will understand where they're coming from. Some unhealthy ways are self-harm in the forms of either suicidal idealization or cutting. Support networks are incredible and are common throughout the LGBT community. It's why it's the LGBT community. Some people just try to avoid all scenarios which would have any sort of objectification, or try to minimize the impact it'll have on them by quickly disengaging. Some people will take up self-defensive measures such as pepper spray in order to regain that sense of safety that they lost. And some things I want to leave it off on are the topics of discussion. Do you agree with how I've applied objectification theory here? Do you think there's a better theory? Do you think this theory just doesn't apply here? Do you think this theory just doesn't work? Do you believe what I've discussed in this